The auditorium was buzzing with excitement as people filled the seats, all eager to see the annual piano competition. Some of the contestants were well known in the local music scene, and everyone had high expectations for this year's event. Bright lights shone on the stage, and the polished grand piano sat at the center, waiting for its next performer. Among the competitors, there was one name on the program that barely caught anyone's attention. It was the name of an 8-year-old girl who, despite her young age, had quietly been learning piano for years. Backstage, she sat on a small chair, quietly watching the other performers. Some were older teens wearing shiny dresses or neatly pressed suits. They seemed confident, their fingers dancing over the keys during their rehearsals. The girl, in her simple clothes and small shoes, looked very different. She didn't speak much, and her eyes occasionally drifted to the piano with a mixture of awe and determination. Her parents sat a few feet away, offering encouraging smiles but also trying to stay calm themselves. They knew their daughter had a gift, but the audience and the jury did not. Most of them would judge her by her age first and her music second. The murmurs of the crowd and the soft piano notes echoing from the previous performer created a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. She could feel her heart beating fast, but it wasn't fear that made it pound. It was anticipation. She had practiced this moment countless times at home, with her parents listening and nodding, sometimes crying quietly when they realized how much emotion she poured into the music. This was her chance to show the world what she could do. As she waited for her turn, she noticed the jury members scribbling notes and occasionally whispering to each other. Some looked at her name on the program and barely glanced in her direction. They didn't expect much from a girl so young. The other contestants exchanged confident smiles, clearly assuming she wouldn't be a challenge. Even a few audience members whispered to their neighbors, laughing softly and wondering why a child would be competing against more experienced players. But she didn't let any of this distract her. She kept her focus on the piano, on the story she wanted to tell with her music. When the announcer called her name, a few people murmured, and some laughed quietly, thinking it would be a cute but brief performance. She stood up and walked calmly to the stage. Her small frame made her appear even younger in the bright spotlight, and for a moment, the room seemed to pause, unsure what to expect. She didn't look at the audience or the jury. She only looked at the piano, gently resting her hands above the keys. There was no hesitation, no sign of nervousness that people could see. She simply took another deep breath and let her fingers meet the keys. The first note sounded soft, almost delicate, but it was filled with a depth of emotion that made some audience members lean forward in their seats. It was unexpected, and for a moment, a hush fell over the room. The jury members exchanged glances, eyebrows raised, unsure if they had misjudged the situation. The girl continued to play, each note flowing naturally, like she was telling a story rather than performing a piece. There was something about the way she combined precision with feeling that caught everyone by surprise. As she played, her small hands moved confidently over the piano, hitting complex sequences that one would not expect from someone her age. The music seemed to grow, building layers of emotion that filled the room. The audience, who had been quietly skeptical, began to sit straighter, listening intently. Even the other contestants backstage had stopped warming up, peeking through the curtains in disbelief. They had underestimated her, and now it was impossible to ignore the power of her performance. Her parents watched with a mixture of pride and awe. They had always known she was talented, but seeing her in this large auditorium, performing under bright lights with so many people watching, was a different experience entirely. They could see how her face showed concentration, but also a sense of joy. She was not just playing notes. She was creating music that connected with everyone listening. Her dedication to practice, the hours spent perfecting each phrase, and her deep love for piano were all visible in the way she played. For the first few minutes, the audience was silent, captivated by her presence. The music was not just technically impressive. It carried emotion that made people feel something real. Some older audience members smiled knowingly, remembering their own early experiences with music. Others, younger listeners, were completely absorbed, unable to look away. The jury members, who had initially been doubtful, began leaning forward, scribbling notes furiously and whispering to each other. They were stunned, realizing that this little girl had far surpassed what they had expected. Throughout the performance, there was a natural flow to her playing. She didn't rush or hesitate. Each note seemed deliberate, each pause meaningful. It was as if the piano itself was an extension of her emotions, and she communicated directly with everyone in the room. Some audience members wiped their eyes quietly, moved by the beauty of her music. Others held their breath, not wanting to miss a single moment. She had captured the entire room without saying a word, using only her hands and the piano to speak. As the piece continued, the girl's confidence grew. She knew every note by heart, but it wasn't just memorization that made the performance special. It was the way she interpreted the music. She added subtle dynamics, a gentle touch here, a stronger press there, all in perfect harmony with the emotion she wanted to convey. The audience could feel the story unfolding, and by the time she reached the middle of the piece, even the skeptics were fully engaged. They were no longer thinking about her age. They were thinking about the music, about the experience she was creating for everyone in that room. By the end of her piece, the entire auditorium was silent. There was a moment where no one dared to breathe, as if everyone was holding on to the last note. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then growing louder, until the room was filled with cheers and claps. The jury members sat stunned, some leaning back in their chairs, others looking at each other with wide eyes. They had been completely wrong to underestimate her. This little girl, just 8 years old, had captured the hearts of everyone present. Backstage, other contestants were whispering in amazement. Some were inspired, some were humbled, but all of them knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. The girl, unaware of the whispers and admiration around her, simply stood and bowed politely, her small smile showing quiet pride. She didn't need the praise to feel fulfilled. She had expressed herself through her music, and that was enough. The announcer stepped forward, trying to regain control of the stage, but even he was momentarily speechless. Finally, he found his voice and praised her performance, highlighting the emotion, skill, and maturity she had displayed. The audience erupted again, cheering and clapping, and the girl's parents hugged each other, tears of joy streaming down their faces. They had always known she was special, but tonight, everyone else had seen it too. As she left the stage, she waved shyly to the audience, her heart still racing from the excitement. The first part of the competition was over, and though she was only one performer among many, she had already made a lasting impression. The jury would remember her, the audience would talk about her, and she herself would carry the memory of this night forever. It was not just a performance. It was a declaration that talent and passion know no age, and that sometimes, the smallest person can create the largest impact. After her first performance, the young girl walked off the stage, feeling a mixture of relief and excitement. Her tiny hands still tingled from the piano keys, and her heart raced with joy. Backstage, she could hear whispers and quiet applause from the audience through the curtains. Some of the older contestants watched her with wide eyes, clearly surprised at the level of talent such a young child could display. The energy backstage was different now, a mix of admiration, curiosity, and a little bit of nervousness. Everyone knew she had set the bar very high. Her parents rushed to her side, embracing her tightly. Their smiles were bright, and their eyes sparkled with pride. They whispered words of encouragement, praising not only her skill, but also the emotion she had poured into the performance. She smiled shyly, her cheeks flushed, but inside she felt a deep satisfaction. This was her world, the piano, and she had shared a piece of her heart with everyone listening. It was a feeling that words could not capture. As the next contestants were called to the stage, she returned to her seat, quietly observing. She noticed the other performers now seemed a bit more serious. Some were practicing rapid finger movements on the small keyboards backstage, trying to match her technical skills. Others were staring at the grand piano, perhaps feeling intimidated by what they had just witnessed. She watched calmly, understanding that everyone had their own journey and challenges, but also realizing that tonight she had shown that age was no barrier to greatness. The audience, meanwhile, was still buzzing with excitement. Conversations were filled with astonishment and admiration. People spoke of her poise, the depth of emotion in her playing, and the maturity that seemed impossible for someone so young. Even the jury members were whispering among themselves, trying to write their notes while processing what they had just experienced. It was clear to everyone that she had made a lasting impression, one that would be difficult for the other contestants to match. Backstage, the young girl took a small sip of water and stretched her fingers gently. She knew she would have more performances to give in the future, and she wanted to keep her energy and focus strong. Her mind wandered briefly to the hours of practice she had spent at home, often alone in the quiet, her parents watching lovingly from a distance. Every note she played tonight had been prepared, but she had also added something special, her own feeling, her own voice. That was what made the difference. Talent alone was important, but passion and emotion created a connection that no technical skill could achieve on its own. As the evening progressed, the young girl watched the other contestants perform. Some were excellent, with complex pieces and confident movements, yet many of them lacked the emotion and storytelling she had brought to the piano. She noticed the audience responding politely, clapping appropriately, but never with the same intensity or stillness they had shown for her. It was a subtle observation, but it gave her a sense of confidence that she was doing something truly unique. She understood that music was not only about playing notes perfectly, it was about touching hearts and minds. During a brief break, she wandered near the side of the stage, observing the large auditorium from a distance. The bright lights, the polished wooden floors, the rows of seats filled with people. All of it felt magical. She thought about how much she loved the piano and how it allowed her to express things that words could not. Her young mind filled with dreams of performing in even larger halls one day, sharing her music with more people, and perhaps inspiring other children to follow their own passions. This small moment backstage sparked something powerful within her, a desire to grow, to explore, and to continue sharing her gift. The next round of the competition began, and the young girl returned to her seat, focusing quietly. When it was her turn again, the audience was already aware of what she could do. Some people whispered excitedly when they saw her approach the stage, eager to witness another performance. She felt a small surge of nerves, knowing expectations were higher now, but she quickly reminded herself to focus on the music. She approached the piano with calm determination, placed her fingers on the keys, and took a deep breath. She was ready. The first notes of her second performance flowed smoothly, with confidence and grace. She experimented with soft dynamics and subtle pauses, creating tension and release that captivated the listeners. The audience leaned forward, listening closely, many of them unable to believe such depth of expression could come from someone so young. The jury members watched intently, taking careful notes, trying to capture not just the technical accuracy, but the emotional impact of her performance. They could feel that this child was extraordinary, and their surprise was evident on their faces. As she played, her body seemed to move naturally with the music, each gesture precise and expressive. She was completely immersed, unaware of the stares and admiration surrounding her. She felt as if the piano was an extension of herself, allowing her to communicate in ways words never could. Her parents watched from the side, tears of pride glistening in their eyes. They knew how hard she had worked, the sacrifices and dedication, and seeing it come to life in front of so many people was a dream come true. The piece she played built in intensity, moving from gentle melodies to powerful chords that filled the room. Her fingers danced effortlessly over the keys, and every note seemed intentional, every pause meaningful. She told a story with her music, a story of hope, courage, and passion. The audience responded instinctively, leaning closer, their attention fully captured. Even those who were skeptical at first found themselves enchanted, transported by the power of her playing. The room became a shared experience, connected by the beauty of her talent. When she reached the final section, her hands moved with precision, yet there was a sense of freedom in her performance. She was not simply following sheet music. She was creating, interpreting, and expressing herself fully. The audience could feel it, the jury could feel it, and the other contestants could not help but admire the purity of her talent. The final chord rang out, resonating throughout the hall, leaving a silence that spoke louder than words. People held their breath for a brief moment, absorbing the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Then, the applause began, growing steadily until it filled the entire auditorium. Some people rose to their feet, clapping enthusiastically. The jury members exchanged amazed glances, their skepticism replaced by awe and respect. This small girl had not only performed with technical brilliance but had conveyed emotion in a way that few adults could achieve. Her performance was a reminder that age is no measure of talent, and that true passion and dedication can shine brighter than experience alone. Backstage, the young girl smiled quietly, her heart full. She waved to the audience and returned to her seat, feeling a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. She had done more than play music. She had connected with people, touched their hearts, and shared a part of herself. The experience strengthened her love for the piano and her desire to continue improving, to explore new pieces, and to keep expressing herself through music. As the competition continued, she remained focused and humble, quietly observing the other performances. She knew that each performer had their own story, their own journey, and she respected that. But she also understood that she had made a lasting impression tonight. The memory of her music, the way the audience reacted, and the awe of the jury would stay with her forever. This was only the beginning of her journey, and she felt ready for whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. Her small hands held the power to create big moments, and she was just getting started. The atmosphere in the auditorium changed as the young girl prepared for her third performance. By now, the audience had grown curious and excited to see what she would do next. Whispers traveled across the rows, with people expressing their admiration for a child who had already left such a strong impression. Even the older contestants, who had at first dismissed her because of her age, were now watching with wide eyes, clearly realizing that she was not an ordinary performer. Backstage, she quietly adjusted her dress and took a moment to stretch her fingers. Her parents stood nearby, encouraging her with warm smiles and soft words. She had already amazed everyone twice, but she reminded herself that each performance was a new opportunity to tell a story through music. The nervousness she had felt at the start of the evening had faded, replaced by calm determination and focus. She knew that music was her voice, and tonight she wanted to share as much as she could with everyone listening. When her name was called for the third performance, she walked to the piano with poise, her small steps echoing softly on the wooden floor. The spotlight shone down on her, making her appear even smaller than she was. The audience was quiet, anticipation hanging in the air like a gentle weight. She did not look at them or the jury. She only looked at the piano, letting her mind center on the music she was about to create. Taking a deep breath, she placed her fingers on the keys and began. The first notes were soft, delicate, and precise. The sound filled the hall, capturing the attention of everyone present. This time, she added subtle variations, slight changes in tempo, and gentle shifts in dynamics that created a sense of storytelling. The audience leaned in, mesmerized, as if they were witnessing a living story unfold before them. The jury members, still recovering from her previous performances, leaned forward in their seats, scribbling notes furiously while trying to capture both her technical skill and emotional depth. As she continued, her playing became more expressive. She moved smoothly from calm, gentle passages to faster, more intricate sections, showing mastery beyond her years. The audience could feel the energy building, each note carefully chosen and delivered with feeling. Some people closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others watched her fingers move across the keys with fascination. Every person in the hall felt a connection, even without knowing her personally. It was as if she could communicate through the piano directly into their hearts. Backstage, the older contestants whispered to one another. They were impressed and humbled by her ability to combine technical skill with emotional expression. They had practiced for months, even years. Yet this young girl was commanding attention with a simplicity and authenticity that was impossible to ignore. Some felt challenged, inspired to play better, while others were quietly in awe. Her presence had changed the energy of the competition entirely. Her parents watched from the side, holding each other's hands tightly. Pride and joy filled their hearts. They had always known their daughter was talented, but to see her captivate an entire room of people, including experienced musicians and skeptical adults, was overwhelming. They whispered to each other about how far she had come and how much potential she had for the future. The girl herself remained focused, immersed in the music, aware of the audience but never distracted by their reactions. As the piece reached its middle section, she played with increasing intensity. Her fingers moved rapidly over the keys, executing difficult passages with precision and ease. Yet, unlike some performers who focus only on speed, she added feeling to every note. The music rose and fell like waves, carrying emotion and telling a story that everyone could feel. The audience's attention was unwavering, as though the room had become a shared space for the music to live and breathe. The jury members, now fully attentive, could not help but be impressed. Their expressions showed a mixture of astonishment and admiration, realizing that they were witnessing a rare talent. The girl added subtle nuances, small pauses that created tension and anticipation. The audience leaned forward, completely absorbed. She did not play for applause or recognition. She played for the joy of music and the connection it created. Every note mattered. Every chord was intentional. She had learned that music was more than just performing. It was about sharing a part of herself and allowing others to feel it too. The emotional impact of her playing was undeniable, leaving many people quietly moved, some with tears forming in their eyes. Throughout the performance, she maintained perfect posture, her movements elegant yet natural. The audience could see the concentration in her eyes, the way her fingers seemed to dance effortlessly over the keys, and the subtle expressions on her face that reflected the story she was telling. Her parents exchanged glances, smiling through tears, amazed at how their daughter had grown not just in skill, but in presence and confidence. They knew that this night would stay in their hearts forever, a memory of her courage, talent, and passion. The piece built toward a dramatic conclusion, with chords that resonated powerfully throughout the hall. Each note was deliberate, each pause meaningful. The audience could feel the culmination of emotion, the careful construction of a story through music. Some people leaned back in their seats, taking in the grandeur of her performance, while others held their breath, unwilling to miss a single moment. Even the jury members, experienced musicians and teachers, were caught off guard by the depth and maturity of her playing. This was more than a performance. It was a revelation. As she reached the final notes, her hands moved with precision and grace. The music softened gradually, leading to a gentle, lingering chord that seemed to hang in the air, leaving the room in awe. Silence followed for a brief moment, as the audience processed what they had just heard. Then slowly applause began. First a few scattered claps, then a wave of sound as the entire auditorium erupted into cheers. People rose to their feet, clapping enthusiastically, some shouting words of praise. The jury members exchanged amazed looks, clearly impressed beyond expectation. This little girl had done something extraordinary again. Backstage, the older contestants were still absorbing the impact of her performance. They spoke in hushed tones about her technique, her expression, and the story she told through music. Some admitted feeling inspired, realizing that true artistry goes beyond experience or age. They had underestimated her, and now they knew that talent could appear in the most unexpected places. The young girl herself, unaware of all the whispers and admiration, simply bowed to the audience with a small, shy smile. Her joy was quiet but deep. She had shared herself through music, and that was enough. Her parents joined her on stage briefly, hugging her tightly and praising her once more. She felt their love and pride, but she remained humble, knowing that each performance was just a step in her journey. She had not only impressed the audience and jury, but had also grown in confidence and understanding of her own abilities. She had discovered that music could touch hearts in a way nothing else could. and that realization gave her even more motivation to continue learning and sharing her gift. As the evening continued, the young girl sat quietly, watching the remaining performers. She realized that she had changed the energy of the competition, and that people were now watching her with a mixture of respect and admiration. Her small size, once underestimated, was now irrelevant. What mattered was the music she created and the way she made people feel. The memory of her performance would stay with everyone present, a reminder that talent, passion, and emotion can surpass age, experience, and expectation. By the time the third performance ended, the girl had fully established herself as a remarkable talent. The audience, jury, and other contestants had witnessed something rare and beautiful. Her calm demeanor, her dedication, and her expressive playing made a lasting impression. She had shown that true artistry comes from the heart and that the ability to move others through music is a gift that knows no boundaries. As she quietly left the stage, she felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation, knowing that this was only the beginning of her journey and that her music would continue to inspire and touch lives. As the fourth performance approached, the young girl felt a mixture of calm determination and quiet excitement. She had already amazed the audience and jury with her previous performances, but she knew that each piece she played was a new opportunity to tell a story and touch hearts. Backstage, she quietly warmed up her fingers, feeling the familiar thrill of anticipation in her chest. Her parents stood nearby, their eyes shining with pride and admiration. They whispered encouragements, reminding her that the most important thing was to play from the heart. When her name was called, the audience was already buzzing with anticipation. People remembered her previous performances and were eager to see what she would do next. Some whispered excitedly to their neighbors, predicting that this young girl would once again leave everyone stunned. She walked to the piano with poise, her small steps confident yet graceful. The spotlight fell on her, illuminating her focused expression and the polished piano in front of her. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys, feeling a calm sense of readiness. The first notes she played were soft, delicate, and full of emotion. The audience immediately leaned in, drawn into the story she was telling through her music. Unlike some performers who played only to impress, she played to connect, to share a part of herself with everyone listening. Her fingers moved smoothly and effortlessly over the keys, creating melodies that were both beautiful and moving. Each chord, each pause, was intentional, adding layers of feeling to the performance. The jury, who had initially been skeptical because of her age, watched with growing astonishment. They scribbled notes, whispered to each other, and occasionally exchanged glances, clearly impressed by the depth of her skill and emotion. They had seen many talented performers, but something about this young girl's ability to combine technical mastery with heartfelt expression was rare. Even the older contestants backstage paused to watch, captivated by her presence and the music flowing from her tiny hands. As the piece progressed, the music grew more complex. She navigated intricate passages with precision and grace, each note ringing clearly and confidently. But what truly set her apart was the emotion behind the music. She did not play mechanically. She played with feeling, telling a story that everyone in the hall could understand without a single word. The audience was silent, absorbed in the performance, some closing their eyes to fully experience the music. The energy in the room shifted, and it was clear that she had captured everyone's attention completely. Her parents watched with awe, tears welling up in their eyes. They had spent countless hours helping her practice, witnessing her dedication and passion. But seeing her perform in front of such a large audience was a different experience entirely. They felt immense pride, knowing that she was sharing her gift in a way that moved people deeply. The young girl herself remained focused, completely absorbed in the music. She felt each note, each chord, flowing through her and into the room, creating a connection that transcended words. The middle section of the piece brought a gentle, lyrical melody, allowing her to demonstrate not only technical skill but also expressive nuance. She varied the tempo, added subtle dynamics, and allowed the music to breathe naturally. The audience was spellbound, completely engaged, and the jury members were clearly impressed, taking careful notes while trying to capture the emotional impact. The young girl's ability to communicate through music was evident in every gesture, every touch of the keys. As the piece built toward its climax, the energy in the room grew palpable. She played with increasing intensity, her fingers moving swiftly and confidently, executing complex sequences with apparent ease. Yet, despite the technical demands, she never lost the emotional depth that had captured everyone's hearts. Each note was deliberate, each chord expressive, and the audience could feel the story reaching its peak. People sat forward in their seats, completely absorbed, while some even whispered in amazement at what such a young child could achieve. Backstage, the older contestants watched with a mixture of awe and humility. They had been confident at the beginning of the evening, thinking that her age would be a limitation, but now they realized that true talent is not measured by size or years. They observed her poise, her focus, and the passion she poured into her playing, understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Some felt inspired to work harder. Others simply admired the purity and depth of her talent. Her parents felt their hearts swell with pride. They had always known their daughter was gifted, but seeing her command the stage with such confidence and emotion was overwhelming. They whispered to each other about how far she had come and how much potential she had for the future. The young girl, however, remained humble, focused on the music rather than the applause. She understood that each note mattered and that the true joy came from sharing her gift with others. As the climax of the piece approached, she executed a series of powerful chords, each one resonating throughout the auditorium. The audience held their breath, captivated by the intensity and beauty of the performance. Her hands moved with precision and grace, creating a perfect balance between technical skill and emotional expression. The jury members leaned forward, completely engaged, their previous doubts erased by the depth and maturity of her playing. The final notes arrived softly, gently fading into silence. For a brief moment, the audience held their breath, as if not wanting to break the spell. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the room. First a few scattered claps, then a wave of sound as the entire audience rose to their feet, cheering enthusiastically. The jury members exchanged amazed glances, clearly impressed beyond expectation. The young girl had done something extraordinary, combining talent, emotion, and presence in a way that few performers achieve. Backstage, the older contestants were still absorbing the impact of her performance. They whispered to each other about her technique, her expression, and the story she had told through music. Some admitted feeling inspired, realizing that true artistry goes beyond experience or age. They had underestimated her, and now they knew that talent could appear in the most unexpected places. The young girl herself, unaware of all the whispers and admiration, simply bowed to the audience with a small, shy smile. Her joy was quiet but deep. She had shared herself through music, and that was enough. Her parents joined her on stage briefly, hugging her tightly and praising her once more. She felt their love and pride, but she remained humble, knowing that each performance was just a step in her journey. She had not only impressed the audience and jury, but had also grown in confidence and understanding of her own abilities. She had discovered that music could touch hearts in a way nothing else could, and that realization gave her even more motivation to continue learning and sharing her gift. As the evening progressed, the young girl sat quietly, watching the remaining performers. She realized that she had changed the energy of the competition, and that people were now watching her with a mixture of respect and admiration. Her small size, once underestimated, was now irrelevant. What mattered was the music she created and the way she made people feel. The memory of her performance would stay with everyone present, a reminder that talent, passion, and emotion can surpass age, experience, and expectation. By the end of the fourth performance, the girl had fully established herself as a remarkable talent. The audience, jury, and other contestants had witnessed something rare and beautiful. Her calm demeanor, dedication, and expressive playing made a lasting impression. She had shown that true artistry comes from the heart and that the ability to move others through music is a gift that knows no boundaries. As she quietly left the stage, she felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation, knowing that the best was still to come and that her journey as a pianist had only just begun. By the time the fifth performance arrived, the young girl had captured the hearts of everyone in the auditorium. Whispers filled the room, with people expressing curiosity and excitement about what she would do next. The older contestants, who had initially underestimated her, watched with quiet admiration, realizing that her talent was extraordinary. Backstage, she sat calmly, her hands resting gently in her lap. She had already amazed the audience with her previous performances, but she knew that each piece was a new opportunity to share her feelings and tell a story through music. Her parents stood nearby, their eyes shining with pride and love. They whispered words of encouragement, reminding her to focus on the music and enjoy every moment. The young girl nodded, feeling a quiet determination. She had practiced tirelessly for this night, but it wasn't practice alone that made her performances special. It was the connection she felt with the piano and the way she could share her emotions through each note. When her name was called, the audience's anticipation grew even stronger. People remembered her earlier performances and were eager to experience her music again. Some whispered excitedly, predicting that this performance would be just as mesmerizing. She walked to the piano with poise, her small steps confident yet gentle. The spotlight illuminated her focused expression, and the polished keys in front of her seemed to shine even brighter under the lights. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys, ready to begin. The first notes flowed smoothly, soft and tender, immediately drawing the audience into her world. She played with precision, yet every sound was filled with emotion. The music was not just a sequence of notes. It was a story, told through her small hands with grace and depth. The audience was silent, captivated by the way she expressed herself. Even the jury members, who had seen countless performers, were leaning forward, completely absorbed in the performance. They scribbled notes, their faces showing amazement and respect. As the piece continued, she built layers of sound, moving seamlessly from gentle melodies to more intense passages. Her fingers moved confidently, executing intricate sequences that required focus and skill. Yet, despite the technical difficulty, she never lost the emotional depth that had captured everyone's hearts. Each chord was deliberate, each pause meaningful, and the audience could feel the story unfolding with every note. Some people closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others watched her hands with fascination. The energy in the room was electric, and it was clear that she had the full attention of everyone present. Backstage, the older contestants whispered to each other, marveling at her ability to combine technical skill with deep emotional expression. They had once thought of her as just a child, but now they realized that talent could appear in anyone, regardless of age. Some felt inspired, others humbled, but all of them acknowledged that she was a rare and extraordinary performer. The young girl herself remained focused, completely immersed in the music. She played not for applause or recognition, but because the piano allowed her to share a part of herself with everyone listening. Her parents watched with tears in their eyes, overcome by pride and joy. They had spent years nurturing her love for music, guiding her through practice, and witnessing her dedication. Seeing her now, performing with confidence, skill, and emotion in front of such a large audience, was more than they could have imagined. They whispered to each other about her growth, her talent, and the promise of the future. The young girl, meanwhile, was completely absorbed in the performance, feeling every note and chord as it resonated through the hall. The middle section of the piece was especially powerful. She added subtle variations, softening the tempo here, adding a stronger chord there, creating a dynamic range that kept the audience on edge. The music seemed to breathe, flowing naturally from her heart into the piano and filling the room with beauty. The audience was spellbound, leaning forward, completely engaged. The jury members exchanged glances, clearly impressed by the young girl's ability to communicate so profoundly through music. Even those who were initially skeptical were now fully captivated, unable to look away. As the piece reached its climax, the young girl played with intensity and passion. Her fingers moved quickly and gracefully, navigating challenging passages with ease. Each note was precise, yet full of emotion. The music built to a powerful crescendo, resonating through the entire auditorium. People felt the impact of her playing, their hearts racing with the energy and emotion she conveyed. Some audience members whispered in amazement, while others simply held their breath, completely absorbed. The jury members were equally stunned, their previous doubts replaced by admiration and awe. Backstage, the other contestants were captivated. They had expected a child to be cute and maybe play a simple piece, but they were witnessing a performance that rivaled professional musicians. They marveled at her skill, her poise, and the depth of feeling she brought to the piano. Some were inspired, thinking about how they could improve their own performances, while others simply watched in awe, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. Her parents felt their hearts swell with pride. They had always known their daughter was talented, but seeing her perform at this level, moving an entire audience with her music, was overwhelming. They whispered softly to each other about how far she had come and how much potential she had. The young girl herself remained humble, focusing on the music rather than the applause. She understood that true fulfillment came from expressing herself and touching others through her art. As she played the final notes, the music softened, creating a gentle, lingering sound that seemed to hang in the air. The audience held their breath, savoring the last moments of the performance. Then, slowly, applause began. At first it was scattered, then it grew into a powerful wave of clapping, cheers, and standing ovations. People were genuinely moved, some wiping away tears, others smiling widely. The jury members exchanged amazed glances, clearly impressed beyond words. They had seen countless performers, but this young girl had exceeded all expectations. Backstage, the older contestants were still processing what they had witnessed. They spoke in hushed tones about her technique, her emotional depth, and the story she had told through music. They admitted feeling inspired and humbled, realizing that true artistry transcends age and experience. The young girl herself, unaware of the admiration around her, simply bowed politely to the audience with a small, shy smile. She felt joy and fulfillment in knowing that she had shared her gift through music, and that was enough. Her parents joined her on stage briefly, embracing her with pride and love. They praised her for her skill, her focus, and the emotion she had brought to the performance. The young girl smiled, feeling their support and encouragement, but remained humble. She knew that each performance was a step in her journey and that there was always more to learn and achieve. She had not only impressed the audience and jury, but had also grown in confidence and understanding of her abilities. She realized that music could connect people, touch hearts, and leave a lasting impact, and that knowledge filled her with motivation and excitement for the future. As the evening progressed, she sat quietly, watching the remaining performances. She understood that she had changed the energy of the competition, and that people were now viewing her with respect and admiration. Her age no longer mattered. What mattered was the power of her music and the emotional connection she created. The memory of her fifth performance would stay with everyone in the auditorium, a reminder that passion, dedication, and talent can overcome expectations and inspire others. By the end of her fifth performance, the young girl had firmly established herself as an extraordinary talent. The audience, jury, and fellow contestants had witnessed something rare and beautiful. Her calm demeanor, dedication, and expressive playing made a lasting impression. She had shown that true artistry comes from the heart and that the ability to move others through music is a gift that knows no boundaries. As she quietly left the stage, she felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation, knowing that the final performance would be her chance to leave an unforgettable mark on everyone present. The final performance of the evening arrived, and the young girl felt a mix of calm determination and quiet excitement. She had already performed 5 times, leaving the audience and jury in awe, but this last performance was her chance to conclude her journey with something unforgettable. Backstage, she quietly warmed up her fingers, feeling the familiar thrill of anticipation. Her parents stood close by, offering reassuring smiles and gentle words of encouragement. She nodded, taking a deep breath, and reminded herself that the most important thing was to play from the heart. When her name was called, the audience erupted into applause even before she reached the stage. People remembered her previous performances and were eager to see what she could do next. The older contestants watched with admiration, realizing that she had set a standard that few could match. She walked to the piano with poise, her small steps confident yet gentle. The spotlight illuminated her focused expression and the polished keys before her. She took another deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys, ready to begin her final piece. The first notes sounded soft and delicate, immediately drawing the audience into her world. She played with precision and grace, but what captured everyone's attention was the emotion she conveyed. Each note told a story, each chord expressed a feeling. The audience was silent, hanging on every sound. The jury leaned forward, taking notes while exchanging amazed glances. They had seen many performers, but few had combined technical skill with such emotional depth, especially at such a young age. As the piece progressed, her playing became more expressive. She moved smoothly from gentle melodies to faster, more intricate passages, showcasing both her skill and her ability to convey emotion. The audience was captivated, some closing their eyes to fully absorb the music, others watching her small hands move effortlessly across the keys. Every person in the hall felt the connection she created, the invisible thread of emotion flowing from her through the piano and into their hearts. Backstage, the older contestants watched in quiet awe. They had initially thought of her as just a child, but now they realized that true talent could appear in anyone, regardless of age. They marveled at her poise, her focus, and the depth of feeling she brought to her performance. Some felt inspired to improve their own skills, while others simply admired the purity and brilliance of her artistry. The young girl herself remained immersed in the music, unaware of the admiration around her. She played because it was her way of communicating, her way of sharing herself. Her parents watched with tears of pride in their eyes. They had spent years nurturing her love for music, helping her practice, and witnessing her dedication. Seeing her perform in front of such a large audience, moving people with her talent and emotion, was overwhelming. They whispered to each other about her growth, her extraordinary abilities, and the promise of the future. The young girl, however, focused solely on the piano, feeling each note and chord as it resonated through the hall. The middle section of the piece was particularly moving. She added subtle variations in tempo and dynamics, creating tension and release that kept the audience fully engaged. The music seemed to breathe, flowing naturally from her heart into the piano. The audience was completely absorbed, leaning forward, some with tears in their eyes. The jury members were equally captivated, taking careful notes while trying to capture the emotional impact of the performance. Even those who had doubted her abilities were now fully convinced of her extraordinary talent. As the piece built toward its climax, the young girl played with intensity and passion. Her fingers moved swiftly and accurately, executing complex passages with apparent ease. Each note was precise, each chord expressive, and the audience could feel the story reaching its peak. The energy in the room was palpable, and people were completely absorbed, unable to look away. The jury members, experienced musicians and teachers, were astonished by the depth and maturity of her playing. This was more than a performance. It was a revelation. Backstage, the older contestants whispered to one another, marveling at her skill and the emotional depth of her performance. They had expected a simple, cute performance from a child, but instead they were witnessing something that rivaled professional musicians. They felt inspired, humbled, and amazed all at once. The young girl continued to play with focus and poise, unaware of the whispers, lost in the music and the story she was telling. Her parents' hearts were full of pride. They had always known their daughter was gifted, but seeing her command the stage with such confidence and emotion was overwhelming. They whispered softly to each other about how far she had come and how much potential she had for the future. The young girl herself felt joy and fulfillment, knowing that she had shared her gift through music. She understood that this was more than just performing. It was creating a connection, moving people, and leaving a lasting impression. The final section of the piece approached, and the young girl's fingers moved with precision and grace. The music softened gradually, each note lingering in the air, creating a sense of calm and reflection. The audience held their breath, fully immersed in the final moments of the performance. When the last note faded, there was a brief silence, as if everyone in the room was holding on to the beauty they had just experienced. Then, the applause began, first slowly, then swelling into a powerful wave that filled the auditorium. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and shouting words of praise. The jury members were amazed, their expressions showing astonishment and admiration. They had witnessed something rare and unforgettable. Backstage, the older contestants were still processing what they had seen. They whispered about her technique, her emotional depth, and the story she had told through music. Some admitted feeling inspired, others humbled, but all agreed that they had witnessed a truly extraordinary performer. The young girl, unaware of the attention, bowed to the audience with a shy, small smile. She felt happiness and fulfillment in knowing that she had shared a part of herself through music, and that was enough. Her parents joined her on stage, embracing her with love and pride. They praised her for her focus, skill, and the emotion she had conveyed. The young girl smiled, feeling their support and encouragement, but remained humble. She knew that each performance was just a step in her journey and that there was always more to learn and achieve. She had not only impressed the audience and jury, but had also grown in confidence and understanding of her own abilities. The jury members prepared to announce the results, still clearly impressed by the young girl's talent. They exchanged glances, acknowledging that her performances had set a new standard. The audience waited in anticipation, knowing that they had witnessed something remarkable. When the announcement came, the young girl's name was called as the top performer. The room erupted into cheers, and she was awarded the highest honors. Her parents hugged her tightly, tears streaming down their faces, while she stood with a small, shy smile, feeling proud yet humble. The young girl's performance became the talk of the town. People admired her talent, dedication, and ability to move others through music. Her story inspired children and adults alike, showing that age is never a limitation when it comes to passion and talent. She had not only won the competition but had also captured hearts and left a lasting impact on everyone present. The memory of her performances, her poise, and the emotion she conveyed would remain with the audience, jury, and fellow contestants forever. As the evening came to an end, the young girl reflected on her journey. She realized that the piano had given her a voice, a way to share her feelings and connect with others. The applause, praise, and recognition were wonderful, but the true joy came from expressing herself and touching the hearts of those who listened. She felt motivated to continue learning, practicing, and sharing her gift with the world. Her parents were filled with pride and gratitude. They had watched their daughter grow into a remarkable musician, capable of inspiring and moving people of all ages. They knew that this was just the beginning of her journey, and that she had the potential to achieve great things in the future. The young girl, with her small hands and big heart, had proven that talent, passion, and dedication could create moments of magic that would be remembered forever. She had not only played the piano, she had told a story, connected with people, and left a lasting impression that no one would ever forget.